Hello, everyone. This is Todd. I just wanted to jump on here and give everyone an update. As some of you know, a couple weeks before Christmas, my co-host Brian had an aortic dissection and had to have open heart surgery. Basically, his main aortic valve separated from his heart and was bleeding out. And we almost lost him. It was a very tense and scary time. We did do a GoFundMe page, which I'll post the link to that in the description of the episode today. Brian, unfortunately, did not have insurance and is struggling with medical bills as well. So if you guys want to help, we appreciate that totally. So again, basically, Brian is recovering from surgery, and we are keeping the show going as best we can with episodes that we've had stored up and other things. So today we're going to drop a members episode. You can find these on our website, cryptidcreatures.net. So if you enjoy the episode, go on there and check the rest of them out. We've got quite a few on there. We try to drop about a couple a month, and we're going to try to start dropping one a week once we get back and rolling and get things going here. So like I said, Brian's still got a couple weeks of recovery left before we start recording again, and we will continue to bring you guys as much content as we can. There may be a week or two where I don't drop an episode, and I'm sure you guys will understand that, and I appreciate that very much. So thank you guys again for being here, and thank you for listening, and please enjoy this members episode.
I could see the whole anatomy of the creature itself. It was really thick, all jet black, looked more like a human type of face, Neanderthalish. Everything was knocked over. But the thing was, with the gifting stuff, they wouldn't leave a mess. It was really weird. So they would eat things out of the kettle and actually leave the wrappers back in the kettle. Went back, got the footage, and unbeknownst to me, you can see, it looks like a small chimpanzee face on the side, Neanderthal chimpanzee face.
This is the Cryptid Creature Show. I am Brian, and with me, as always, is my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Hello, my friend. Hope all is well with you. Hello, listeners. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there. Brian, what's going on, my man? What's happening? What's new these days? Anything cool out there? You know,
same old.
We haven't talked about this. Our documentary we were in came out.
Well, that's right. It is on Tubi. Check it out, man. Scariest monsters in the world.
Yes, check it out. No, we're on there running our mouths.
See our smiling faces.
Yep, that's us. Yeah, it's kind of cool seeing ourselves on a documentary. Kind of weird as well.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But cool at the same time.
But yeah, I'm sure we'd be happy to do another one if we.
Of course we would.
So you guys make sure you check it out again. That's Scariest Monsters in the World, and tell us what you think. Let us know.
That's right. Be kind, though.
So tonight's guest is Ryan. Ryan has had several encounters with some Bigfoot creatures, so we're going to bring him on and see what he has seen. But first, Brian, it is time for, yet again, Cryptid Trivia.
Brought to you by the Cryptid Creature Podcast.
Tonight's Cryptid Trivia question is...
I need a drum roll.
What year were the Sierra Sounds recorded?
Oh.
And what location?
Oh, I know that one.
Okay, so two-parter. Think about that. We'll see what you know at the end of the show. Are you ready to bring Ryan on?
Yep, let's get him. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
How you doing?
Good. You hear us okay?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
How's it going, Ryan?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for being with us tonight. Appreciate it.
No issues.
So, Ryan, we know that you've had several encounters. You had stated that you had encounters in 2012 and 13, and you've also had encounters in 2016 and 17. Have those all happened in the same state?
Yeah, New York.
New York?
Correct.
So are these around where you've lived? Is this where you grew up pretty much, or?
Western New York area. Yep.
Okay. Well, why don't you start at the first encounter and tell us what happened to you?
It's a long road. So I kind of got into this whole thing, the whole Bigfoot conundrum, about 2012, 2013. And it wasn't like I wanted to go out and look for these things or anything like that. I was just kind of doing my own thing. As a hobby, I metal detect. So we had done that for years. And on one of these outings, I had my first encounter, which prompted me to kind of get into this whole cryptid subject. So basically, to shorten it up a little bit, I had gone out that day, took my dog with me, went to an old home site location that I had looked up on a map where I wanted to go detect. Spent some time there. I actually tied the dog up behind me to a tree, maybe about 100 yards. I just didn't want him kind of wandering off, So I was detecting around a old well, foot high, 8 foot around. It was pretty big, community well. And the home structure that I was trying to get to was up to the right hand side from that well, maybe about 70 yards. It was kind of thick and there was some bramble, but I decided to go up to my right, and I wanted to hit the far side of the home structure over there. So as I got up to the structure, I kind of ducked my head under a branch because there was a low branch, and the hill, there was kind of, I should kind of set the scenario. There was a hill up on the left side that goes kind of really steep to where this property was. And I came under the branch, and when I looked up, I was kind of looking up the hill a little bit. And behind the tree, what I could see, it looked like, standing halfway behind the tree like that. And I kind of did a double take because I looked back down, I swung the coil, and I looked back up, and at that time, it had realized that I seen what it was, and it stepped out to the left of the tree. We're at a distance of maybe 15 to 20 feet. We're that close together, but it's up, it's up on the hill. I could see the whole anatomy of the creature itself. It was about 5.5 feet tall. It was kind of really slender, lanky arms. The hair on it was really thick, all jet black. There was a few things that it did, but the face on it was more of a like a chimp instead of a human, opposed to the older ones that I've seen that look more like a human, type of face, Neanderthalish. This looked more like a chimp. And what it did to me is, I don't know if it was its reaction that I looked at it and we actually locked eyes for a second, that it bared its bottom teeth to me. There was kind of like not a hiss that came out, but like a ha, and I could see all its teeth. So the whole bottom row, there was no canid teeth or anything like that. It was just all square block teeth. And as it did that, I kind of froze up. I didn't know what to do. This was my first interaction encounter ever. Didn't know what it was. My mind was just racing. And as it did that, it turned around, went down on all fours, and I could see its hand because it was only, like I said, 15, maybe 20 feet away. Had a opposable thumb for sure. Hands just like ours, went down. It went up that hill. I don't even know how fast, but seconds, and it was out of sight. Just boom, 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 and it was gone. And I was still frozen there, kind of in shock. The first thing I did is I turned around, ran. I grabbed my dog, and I ran back to the truck. The truck was maybe 200 yards from where I was at. It wasn't very far. Got in the truck, came home. I didn't really tell anybody about that situation, but I was in shock. I told one person, actually. It happened to be my mother at the time. I told her what had happened, and, it just, I kind of quashed it from there. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to, I'm an avid hunter, and I'm always in the woods, and that's coming upon these things kind of ruined that for me in a sense. And anyway, I didn't tell anybody about it. And then, I don't know, maybe it was almost a year later, I kind of totally forgot about it. I kind of just pushed it in the back of my psyche. I didn't want to, think about it. I didn't want to dabble with it. I blocked it 100% until the following year when I had my second encounter with a couple of friends of mine. It's actually in the same area. As a crow flies, it's about 2.5 miles from one side of the hill to the other. and we were out doing the same thing, doing some metal detecting. My buddy, well, two of them have passed now. They were two of my team members for Western New York Bigfoot. I shared some of their information in one of my books. But the second encounter, it's actually called Dibble Hill. This is Arkwright, New York. And we were up there doing some metal detecting. We had some permission from one of the farmers that owns next to the state land. And there's a trail, I don't know, 3-4 mile trail that people hike. But that day we had gone up around like 2 o'clock, and, it was just, let's make a day thing of this. Let's have some fun. Let's go metal detect this, that, and the third. And that's just what it was. So, found some old home sites, did our thing. Some of these sites dated back, to 1850. So you never know what you're going to find. So that was like our thing. Like, that's what we love to do. Let's do that. So got into it. Maybe about 5 o'clock-ish or something like that. We had taken a break. At the time, I used to smoke cigarettes. We all took a smoke break, kind of like hung out under an apple tree. And at that time, 2 hikers had come by, and I vividly remember they were like of Asian origin, descent, and they had a pink and a yellow, like a windbreaker coats on. They waved and they kept it moving. And, we were there maybe another 10 or 15 minutes, and it's rolling closer to 6 o'clock, and my buddies were like, well, one said he's going to go to the truck. He was done for the day. So he left, and then it was me, myself, and a friend of mine, Brian. He said, hey, I'm going to go across that trail over there because it's a wide swath. It's wide open. It's probably about 50 yards across, and it's actually a hiking trail, but they use it for snowmobiles and everything else. And I said, all right, well, you go over there. He's like, I'm going to hit those home sites. I said, I'm going to stay over here because I'm having some luck. I had found some old coins and stuff. And I was like, well, do your thing. I'll do my thing. It had to be maybe an hour and a half gone by. We're somewhere approaching around like 7:30-ish, somewhere in there, 7:30-ish. Sun's kind of setting. And, I was just like, I'm kind of done. I'm exhausted. We've been here over 5.5 hours. I turned around, made my way back to the trail, toward the trail, and I'm coming out of the woods, and I can see the opening. Well, I see Brian on the other side, and he's already coming out onto the trail because there was sort of a high ground where he was at. And I step out of the woods, and I'm swinging the coil a little bit, and I look up at him, and he's like, pardon my French, what the is that? And he's pointing up the trail, maybe about 200 yards roughly from us, maybe 250. And I didn't really understand what he was saying until he pointed. And then when he pointed, I kind of like took my headset off because I was like, what? And I looked, and up there's this thing. And I'm trying to rationalize what it is. All this stuff's going through my mind. And it's in a position like you would see a linebacker, in a sense, like on all fours is kind of what it looked like. I almost thought it was a bear at first. I was like, wow, that's like, maybe that's a bear. So as this is going through my mind, he's walking toward me and I'm walking toward him. We're kind of coming together, like standing shoulder to shoulder. And at that time, he actually had the shovel, the metal detecting shovel. He was holding it like this, and he just kept saying, what is that? What is that? And all of a sudden, what came back to me is my first encounter on the other side of the hill that I had never told him or anyone else about. And at that time, it stands up. When this thing stands up, it's the biggest thing that I've ever seen in my life. It was just the tallest, largest. I immediately kind of got like tunnel vision, and I actually took my hands and like put them to my face so I could kind of see it better. Instead of me grabbing the phone and taking pictures or video, I wasn't even thinking about that. It was kind of, okay, somebody's here with me. Somebody's witnessing this with me. The first encounter was real. I know, I'm not losing my mind. So I really wanted to key in on the features of this thing because it was so large. It stood there for a minute in the trail. This whole encounter was probably a 45-second ordeal. And as it's standing there, you could see that it has no neck. You can see at 200 yards, roughly, you can see the prominent brow ridge on this thing. You can see what they talk about, the sagittal crest, how it kind of crests and forms back on the head. The shoulders are just massive. The arms hang down toward the knees. If I had to guess the weight of this creature, it would be at least 700 or 800 pounds is what I'm guessing. So at that point, we're standing, we're looking at it, and it turns. It turns to its right, our left, and it goes off the trail. And as it does, it takes 2 steps. 1, 2, and as it takes the second one, the strides are so long, you can see the sun setting, kind of the orange sunset through its legs. And what caught my eye, being a hunter, it hit a conifer tree, a pine branch that kind of hung over the trail. And when it hit its head, and the branch kind of moved like this. And when it did that, I keyed in on that. And I was like, I can get a height reference of how tall this thing really was. So me and my buddy were kind of like in shock. And he's like, I told him, I said, put that shovel down before, you get us both killed. That's basically what I said. I said, you're not going to do anything but dig your own grave with that thing. I was like, I started telling him, he asked me what it was. And I blatantly told him, that's a Bigfoot. And that was only because I had seen the one the year prior. Anyway, we ran back to the truck. We got back to the truck, hastily, because it had gone into the timber on the left side of us, and I didn't want it to come down and flank us because that's the way to the truck. We had to go backwards, back to our right. I said, well, let's hurry up. We got back to the truck. And the whole way home, it was kind of like, it's about a 35-minute ride. So it was like silence until about maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes when we got back to the house. Then we started talking. And he's like, you really think that was a Bigfoot? And I was like, listen, man, I don't know what you think that was. He was like, but, and then he's trying to do his rational mind thing, which is great. And I love that. But he was like, well, what if it was a guy on stilts in a costume? I was like, Brian, we've been out there for 5 hours. Do you think a guy's really out there on stilts, walking around in a costume, just waiting for us to say, hey, here I am, So he, it was great that I had some other people that witnessed this at the time with me, because it gave me some type of clarification, like, hey, these things are real. So after that second encounter is when I myself was like, I need to know more about them. I want to know what they are, how they live, how they eat, where they roam, the whole 9 yards. And that's kind of what thrusted me into this whole, I call it a conundrum, because the things that I've seen, and I don't know, but we ended up putting a team together, and that's how we started on our, I guess you say, our search, was those 2 encounters.
And you call that the Western New York Bigfoot? Is that what you call your team, or is that what your Facebook page?
Yeah, Western New York Bigfoot Association, but you can check out my regular website, which is westernnewyorkbigfoot.com.
Okay. Tell us about your books real quick before we go into your other encounters, or your book.
So the first one, I'll share them with you, Bigfoot Report. These are all on Amazon. The first, I don't know, maybe the first 5 or 6 years getting into the whole Bigfoot thing, kind of what we did as hunters to track them, how we kind of took zones and made corridors and went to different sections of the 4,000 acres to try to see where they were. This one is just it's Encountering Aliens. That's a spin-off of certain things that we encountered while searching for the Sasquatch. And the most recent is How Bigfoot Found Us. And those are all on Amazon. And basically that was a wrap-up of what we've put together, or what was put together over, 12 years or 13 years. And we came up with the best conclusion that we could. We call it like the versus method, us versus them. The biggest thing that we like to look for are structures that are being used and using their carbon footprint against them. And that can lead you to a lot of different things while you search, for them. So people can check that out.
If I don't remember to remind you, you'll have to go on our group page on Facebook and join, and you can post your books and
sure.
Hopefully, I know Brian's a book guy. He might check 1 or 2 of them out. So
sure.
Yeah, I wrote them down, so I'm definitely gonna check them out.
So I know 200 yards. People think 100 yards is far away, right? When they say 100 yards, sometimes people think, oh, that's pretty far, but really it's not that far. And 200 yards isn't that far either. And if you can see, you can probably see that guy has glasses on or not. So if you can see that, you can tell this wasn't a human being, obviously. Do you think that the second one you saw looked like the first one you saw?
No,
could you
negative.
Tell? No? Okay.
Negative. So the little one, the first encounter was more like a chimpanzee. The head was more rounded. It didn't have the conical shape. It had a shorter forehead, a smaller brow. The eyes were not as large as the second one. You could see the eyes on the second one at 200 yards. I mean, that's how big it was. Oh, I did forget to mention.
You're listening to the Cryptid Creature Show. If you're a fan of the show, go and check out our new Patreon site. You'll get access to our private Discord server, exclusive merchandise, access to all live streams and Q&As, discounts on merch from the Cryptid Creature store, and get a chance to be a guest host during one of the show's recordings. Just go to www.patreon.com/cryptidcreatures1. Thank you for listening and supporting the show.
The reference, when it hit its head on the pine tree, about 3 days later is when we ultimately came back, because we had to get up the courage to go back. And I said, hey, I want to measure that tree. I was like really adamant. So what I did is I measured from that branch to the ground, and it was 9'8". So yeah, it was that large that it hit its head and shook that branch. So at that point, I knew that I wasn't dealing with something that was, I just knew that what I had to do was find out as much as I can about them and do it lightly, because they could do some harm being that large. I don't know. It shook me to my core, but I knew I had to find out more about them, and I ended up getting some video and a couple of short trail cam videos and stuff like that. But
so going back to that first one, do you think that was a juvenile type, or do you think it was just something totally different than a regular Sasquatch?
So at the time, I didn't know anything about a juvenile. I didn't know anything about a Bigfoot. Now, when I look back after I've done all the research that I've done, I would say that would be a juvenile. If I had to put it in context of a human being, it would be somewhere in the age of like 13, something like that, a 13-year-old. But whatever it was doing, it was watching me, and it had been able to encroach on me to that close of a distance where I didn't even know it was there. And then when I had gone under that branch, if I wouldn't have gone away, I probably would have never seen it, because it was kind of up the hill, like not far up the hill. You're talking 15 feet, but the slope was just drastic. So it was kind of like looking to my left, but it was like kind of looking down at me. And when I did the double take, it was just, I looked down and I was like, my mind registered, like, what was that? And I looked back up, and it was already coming up behind the tree. And that's when it stopped, and it seen me and I seen it. And I think that's when it got upset, and it showed me its teeth. I don't know if that's a display of aggression or, what it was, but I was able to see that. I mean, and at 15 feet, it will change your life. And I think it was a Bigfoot. It was 100%. It had hair. I didn't see any genitals. I wasn't looking for genital features or anything like that. But I seen the hand. I seen the teeth. I could see the face. I mean, 15 feet is from one end of the room to the other. So it's distinct. Let's just say that. But no, I think they're the same species. I think that the adult, though, just had more adult features. You don't have the features your grandfather has if you're a 10-year-old. It's different. But I think the genetics are the same. But the older one looked more Neanderthalish, all black. The face was jet black, even like big cheekbones you could see. But the hair had come almost to like right under the cheekbones, where you could see like the prominence of the face, the whole. I mean, at that distance. But when you're looking at something that's 10 foot tall, it's different. It's different than some of the other ones that I seen, where they had like the female that I had witnessed. She had a grayer tone in her face. Her skin, you would say, was more oily. It had a sheen to it. It wasn't like his, where it was dark matte black, like a gorilla.
Let's hear about the other encounters that you had then.
Okay. So I'll start by saying this is what thrust me in these two sightings, and then we put our team together, and I started telling the other guys, and my friend told the other guys, like, hey, this is what we've seen, this is what happened. Let's methodically look for these things. We're hunters, we have guns, we track deer, we kind of know what we're doing. Let's see if they're like gorillas. Let's see what they do. So we got into this whole thing. We started grid searching. And then we started finding things that people were talking about and writing about. They were talking about structures and gates and, all these different types of things. And we started finding these things. And I'm like, what are the odds? We know what's here. So after this whole ordeal, we had tracked this whole hill, maybe 4,000 acres, plus a lot of private land that we got permission to go through because people were telling us stories of witnessing them. So we ended up on Center Road in Arkwright at this one location. I don't like to really give that away because that was the gifting area and it was super active. And that's where we had these encounters. So the next encounter would be 2016. One of our rules was we didn't go alone, right? We had different areas. We had the green room. We had the main structure and all these other things. That I explain in the books, but to make a long story short, nobody could go with me that day, and we were doing gifting. If you know what that is, that's kind of where you're leaving things and trying to exchange things and this, that, and the third. And they were doing it with us. We were trying to build their trust. So we would go 4 days a week at the same time, same channel, same place. We were getting them used to us, habituating them, and we wanted more. So that specific day, I think it was July 6th of 2016, July 9th or July 6th. So I go to the location. Nobody could go with me. I grabbed my camera. I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go. I'm just going to change out the 2 SD cams. I'm going to go up there, see if anything is left or not. They were leaving us turkey feathers, blue jay feathers. They would take our marbles from one location, and we had 2 gifting sites where we had both encounters. In the beginning, and they would take one marble and take it to the other gifting site and set it on the other gifting. They were just swapping things. It was unreal. Long story short, I get up to the main structure, and one of the cameras was on the right-hand side. I put my camera down against a tree that I'm holding, and I'm telling the audience for my YouTube channel, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm kind of giving the whole rundown. I got to take my backpack off so I can change the game cams, this, that, and the third. As I do that, I set the cam down. I walk back about 10 paces to the camera. I start doing the thing with the camera, and I look up to my right, and maybe about 50 yards out, there's like a wall of brush just past the maples, but there's like, it's about 6 feet and 8 feet tall in different sections. It kind of bridges the maple hardwoods between the pines. And as I look, that's where I seen the female, which I believe was the female because I never seen her breast, but she had a gentle feel about her. It wasn't like a male broad type of thing. She was more gentle. She was looking at what I was doing. She had she didn't have a huge conical head like the large male did. Hers was kind of sloped back, but she still looked more Neanderthalish too. Her brow ridge was not as prominent as the large one. She was all jet black also, but her facial, the hair did not come up as high, and you could see more of the cheek exposed area, and it was like an oily gray. It had a sheen to it. So as that's happening, I'm frantically trying to get the SD card into the thing to take a fucking picture of what I'm seeing at 50 yards. And I'm telling the camera, guys, I see one right now. I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to get this thing in here. So then I have to turn to look at the camera, push the card, and hit the thing, and I turn back, and all I see is like the brush moving as she had walked off through there. I was upset. So I ran back to the camera, and I start pick it up, put my backpack on, and I'm telling everybody what just like transpired. I'm by myself, so I'm kind of frantic at this point. I'm like, okay, what do? I don't want to go after it, but I don't know. And then I walk back around the structure, and I'm telling the audience that is watching me, like, hey, this is what happened. I start to turn around, and I hear sticks breaking, like large sticks. And I'm like, well, it's time to get the hell out of here. So I come home. I download like all the footage. I put the video out there. I would just like the audience, whoever's watching the YouTube channel, to go through and let them look at everything. Well, a friend of mine had gone through that, and he said, hey, you better take a look at what you captured. And I was like, okay. So I go through it, had a couple people analyze the footage, and when I put that camera down, the 4K Panasonic, it was shooting out up the hill toward the actual gifting area. And unbeknownst to me, there was like 2 other ones that were up on the hill. And what had happened is when I was talking, saying what I had seen, I was kind of being loud. It must have heard me. And on the camera, you can see like a large arm. It must be its left arm. It kind of flails out 3 or 4 times. It's really big. And then all of a sudden you see it stand up. It like comes between the trees, and it's like, whew. And you can tell it's got to be close to 8 foot tall. You can see the span and the width of it. And as when I'm leaving the game cam, coming back to the camera to pick it up, is when it turns around, goes down onto all fours, and takes off. But the crazy thing is when it does that, the sun kind of penetrates the top of the foliage coming down through, and it like illuminates its back. And the hairs on its back, you can tell it's a brown or brownish black creature from the sun, but the back kind of illuminates white, like when the sun hits it, which is really like a translucent feature, which is really crazy. And you can see it head off through the woods. And I had no idea it was there until I really went through the footage. And then some other guys kind of picked it apart on YouTube and was like, hey, that's, you could tell what it was. But that was the second or the third encounter that I had. So there was actually multiples in that area. And what we believe is they were what we had learned is they would traverse different sections. They would how do I explain it? They would live in a center region of the 4,000 acres, right? So they would stay in a hub of maybe like 20 acres is where they like lived. And then they would, I call it a pinwheel. They would go out to different regions for like a week at a time. And they'd come back. It'd almost be like an army. Like they had their hub, and then they would go to a certain region for like a week, and then you couldn't find them anymore over there. And then they'd go over to that region for a week, and they would like move around. I don't know if they were depleting their resources in each given location or really what it was, but it was methodical. They definitely did it methodically because, I mean, you'd get 7 to 10 days in one region and they were gone. And then you have to go back to this. It's like you don't have enough time to keep going. You'd have to go back to the drawing board. And it's like, okay, now we got to find where they went again. What do we do? So it was a lot. It was a lot to take in. And it wasn't easy. We spent days and days and so much time in the timber. It was good, but the next encounter wasn't actually a physical encounter. It was that same location where I got a game cam photo of what I believe is a juvenile that I was kind of explaining, like a profile, a side profile of it. So what we did is we understood that they were coming in from the northwest to this main structure. And the one thing that we had interpreted was this main structure was important to them for whatever reason. And we knew it was important because it was ever changing. So they were adding and taking away pieces to this, large structure. So we'd go one time and document it. There might be 3 branches missing or 5 added, or, they were constantly manipulating it. So we found their foot tracks and we could see, okay, they were coming strictly from the northwest. There was a trail, what was it, to the east, northwest, something like that, south. Yeah, so that'd be northwest. I think it was to the south. There was a trail where the people walked. But it kind of curved around and went up this direction. So they couldn't technically go that direction. They were kind of pinched unless they wanted to cross that trail. And then to the right-hand side of it, maybe about a half a mile was a road. So they the way they came down out of this corridor from the northwest, they were pinched between that trail and the road. So let's just say that half-mile region, it's a large region, but they had to get to that structure for some reason. So whatever we knew. So what we did is we set up some game cameras. We set it in a methodical way. But before we did that, it was kind of like a trickery thing, which I wish I never would have did. but we were gifting with them. Like I said, 4 days a week, 6 p.m. all the time. We would put it. There was times we would be there and we could hear them hooping, hollering, squawking, yapping, talking, all kinds of stuff. We've caught audio, where there's language and stuff that I had analyzed, a bunch of detail. We had Scott Nelson listen to it, a bunch of other people, and something about morphemes and phenoms in language. It's indicative of language, so they pick all these. So what I did is we came up with like a horseshoe method. The region that they entered in from, we didn't go there. That was what we called the no zone. You don't go there. Don't go where they came from. Let them come in. And we kind of horseshoe out with a bunch of cameras that we wanted them to see. So they would be about 50 yards this way, but they would go staggered up maybe 150 to 200 yards in each direction. So it was like a big bowl we kind of made like this. And what they figured is, okay, if we stay on our straight line, them cameras won't catch our picture, and we'll be able to get to that gifting and be able to get to that structure. And I'll be damned, that's exactly what happened. So what I did is I said, the one day we came in, and I said, well, they know all these cameras are here. We literally ran 8, 4 on one side and 4 on the other. And I said, they know they're here because we're not catching anything. I said, but I need to trick them. So what I did is, while the one guy was filling everything that we used to put out for them, I won't go into detail about that, but a lot of it is sugar because they can't get refined sugar products in the wild. So they kind of go ape shit crazy for them, excuse my French. And what I did is I took a trail camera about 10 feet from that and I strapped it around the tree real quick. I turned it on, but I had it about only 2 feet off the ground, maximum 2 feet. But what I did is when they were coming, so if he's coming in the trail this way, I kind of didn't face it toward the direction he was coming in. I wanted him to go past it or her to go past it where it caught the photo and they wouldn't see that the camera was there. And that's exactly what happened. So 2 days later, 3 days later, I went back and I noticed all the stuff was gone. Because like I said, we would do 4 days and like 3 days off. And then like everything was knocked over. But the thing was, with the gifting stuff, they wouldn't leave a mess. It was really weird. So they would eat things out of the kettle and actually like leave the wrappers back in the kettle. They were not like, they would eat Doritos and not leave a crumb. It's almost like they would open the whole bag of Doritos and put it in their mouth and then just put the thing back in the kettle. It was super, super weird. But yeah, so we went back, got the footage, and unbeknownst to me, like you can see, it looks like a small chimpanzee face on the side, Neanderthal chimpanzee face, like, and it must have like went right by it when the photo went off, and it realized it, and it must have went back. And then after I obtained that photo, it kind of went downhill. It's like you tricked us, and you got what you wanted, and then it kind of like took some time. But yeah, they were they're very smart. Let me just say that.
And you said they have a center hub there, and then they go to different locations.
Yes.
They probably just spend a week at each location then, and then go to another, so they don't deplete their natural resources there.
It's definitely a possibility. I looked at it as maybe they did deplete their resources, but you could look at it at that. That would actually be another good thing. But then to me, it was almost like too much of a good thing. So maybe if they're looking at something like, okay, we're here, it's too much of a good thing, we got to go. You know what I mean? You're in and out. It's like 7 to 10 days, and then they're gone. Right. And they just would bounce around the hill for, until 2018, they started to come into this exact region. We caught so much audio that I'll tell you about in a minute too, though. But in 2018, I think, is when they started putting up the wind turbines, 18, 19, and 20. They came right into the core area of the 4,000 acres. It's almost like they knew, like, okay, you just dumped all these turbines in right where they lived? I mean, are you kidding me? This is unreal. How is this even happening? But yeah, that's what they did. But some of the audio we captured, I have this one specific where they're talking, and it sounds like, to me, being keyed in these situations, it sounded like they were teaching a juvenile how to hunt. And what happens in this 5-minute segment, It was like 5 in the morning. We call it the green room because it was like the only green area that had grass in the timber area. We caught this. It sounded like a youngster, right, going crazy, like, oh, like it almost sounds like a bird, but it's not. You can definitely tell because there's different segments that you, wow. And it sounds like something jumps out of the tree at one point, lands on the deer because you hear the thud, and then you hear these snorts. It's almost like a buck would snort or be strangled. It was losing its breath. Like, and then that stops, and then you can hear the youngster start to like flail, like almost enjoy is what I would think, like, yeah, like, so it's making all this noise. And then you hear this large one, which I would say is a male, and if you were to put it in human context, it sounds like it goes, like 2 breaths, go lay down, like go la da is kind of what it sounds like. And I don't know what it meant or anything, but that's what it sounds like. And then that youngster moved off through the timber. And this was all caught on a recorder in that same month in July. I think it was still 2016, toward the end of July after those encounters. But yeah, so it's not like I'm not a knower. It's not, I'm not just a believer. I've seen them. I know we've conquered. We found out what they were. Not what they were, but I mean that they're real technically. I'd love to know what they are. My new endeavor now is actually getting samples. So I put a map together. You can go to Google or Google Map and look up New York Bigfoot sightings. So I created the New York Bigfoot sighting map. I don't know. There's somewhere in 500,000 views on the thing, but I researched all I could back to the 1800s, back through BFRO, back everywhere, and got as many sightings as I could, and I charted them on the map. And some of the push pins, you can go ahead and click, and it'll give you some of the encounters. Some are vague, some are in depth, some have names, some don't. And, it links to my website, which is good because then people can contact me. Me leading into that with the people contacting me, people contact me from all over New York now. So I've currently have 2 things going on, one in Springville, New York, which is just recently, and one in Addison, New York, which is currently going on now. The one in Springville is a report where a door was ripped off a trailer. A lady has an older trailer, and in the older trailers, the hot water tanks are on the left side of it's kind of like an outdoor door. You had to go to it, and it was in a little closet room on the side of the trailer. Well, that door was completely ripped off. So me and some of my team now, Mike Ann, another guy, we talk with Steve Culls. He's kind of the New York guy out here, so we're all buddies, and it is what it is. We couldn't really come up with some rational explanation for how this door was ripped off. And then this next thing is ongoing in Addison, where they're seeing these creatures on a regular basis where they have names for them. It's been the last 6-7 months. We're trying to go out there. We were going to go this weekend, but I think she got cold feet. The girl that she has sent me some hair samples that are going to be tested through a program at NC State. Darby Orchid has a thing going on, and it's going to be sent there because I really believe what she's telling me based on some of the things that I've seen and some of the things that I've learned and things that she's given me. But I kind of do a preliminary on the hair where I look under the microscope, and we're looking into a new theory where it's Mike Ann and Doug Hychek kind of have this little thing going. It's called the pink hair experiment. And when you look at certain hair under a black light, it kind of turns a certain color, pinkish or greenish, or, most hair doesn't light up like that. And what they're trying to look into is that maybe certain proteins can do that, and it may be indicative of Sasquatch or the possibility. So there's all these different things going on, but that's kind of where I'm trying to go with my research, is actually obtain the samples and stuff like that. And the last sighting that I had was actually, it was around 2017, end of 2017 deer season, or 2018. It's kind of a blur in there because of all the things that have been going on, believe me. And I had the opportunity to actually shoot one, and I didn't. Not that I want to, not that I would ever do that, but I had the opportunity during bow season. And so I was sitting in my tree stand up on a ridge off of Botwell Hill, they call this other forested area. And I had two ridges. I sat between the ridges. There was a high point and a real, real low point. And I was on the median where the deer used to walk the terrain, let's say. You know, it was kind of like a funnel. I sat between the ridge, like I said, and down below is where I heard it go whoop, kind of like that. And I knew what that was. So it got me, you know, I was intrigued. I was on point. I was like, I know what that sound is. And then maybe 2 minutes later, I heard it up on the ridge. Whoop! I heard it again, and then I heard whack. And that's where I was like, okay, is it time to go? Because I know what's in the neighborhood. I know that there's two of them, you know, maybe 150 yards either direction. So it was getting dark, and I was like, you know, I'm here hunting. I'm not even paying attention because that's like I said, I told you, it was really hard for me. I had to focus on hunting, being quiet, doing my thing, trying to hunt deer, and block that out, the whole Sasquatch thing out. And it's so hard to do that it almost ruined my hunting forever. But anyway, I'm sitting there. I'm sitting in the stand. I got my Ozonics running. It's a machine that it's like an ozone machine. It depletes your human scent. So if something comes in downwind, it you know, kills your human odor. Got my bow hung up. I'm just sitting there, and I hear this noise, and I look to my left, and I can see movement. Well, I thought it was a deer at first, and it's kind of coming down on a trajectory, on an angle, maybe about 30 to 40 yards from me. And then I see the leg, and that's what I see. And I see boom, 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 and I could hear it walking. And I was like, oh my! I was frozen. I just didn't know what. I was like, this ain't happening. This is not happening right now. This is exactly what I was saying to myself, because it's getting dark. I mean, you're in the 5 o'clock realm during bow season. You know, like it's around Halloween, first week of November. You're getting where you got to get out of the tree stand anyway. And I look, and I can see this thing walking, and I'm like, no, this ain't happening. You're going to be stuck here till dark, and the road is probably, I don't know, 300 yards from my position where I'm at. So I was like, let's just wait this out and see what happens. And I didn't want to move, so I watched this thing, and then it comes out, and this one's probably, if I had to guess, in a neighborhood of 6-7 feet, maybe about 7 foot tall. Couldn't tell, couldn't see breasts, nothing like that. Couldn't really get. I just knew what it was. I couldn't get all the details. It goes and it's about 30 yards from me, and it's walking, and it gets to a certain area, maybe about 60 yards out in front of me, and this is where it gets really weird. This is where things made me start to think that something isn't right with these creatures. So it goes to a log. There's a huge log out in front of me. I'm talking a 14, 16, 18-inch round log. Like, I couldn't pick it up. You couldn't pick it up. We would need 3 guys. It grabs it with one. It bends over, and I couldn't tell what it was reaching for. And it grabs with one hand, and it pulls the tree up like this. And it reaches with its other hand, and it grabs something, and the tree goes woof. It drops the tree back down. What it had in its hand, I don't know. I don't know if it stored something there, or if it stashed something there, or if it was grabbing something to eat, or if it was grubs. It would be a total guess. I didn't see that. Well, then it turns around, and it starts to come at me. I'm like, the feeling in my stomach was just like, at this time I had grabbed my bow. I had my bow like this, kind of like in front of my face, and I had my hand on it. Then all I got to do is put my release pull, and I could try to draw if I had to. And at 30 yards, I could have smoked it. I could have shot it and killed this thing. And about 30 yards, and I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do? And all through my head is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to shoot it? You got to shoot it. What's going to happen? Is the other one over there? Where's the other one? I just got so many things flying through my head at this point. And all of a sudden it veers. And I'm like, like I could breathe. Like there was fresh air. So it broke off back to the direction that it came from. And there was a huge oak tree out to my left. I mean, one of the oak trees where it would take two people to wrap your arms around. It was a big one, that they didn't log out. And as it got behind that, this is where I don't know. I'm just telling you as I seen it, okay? So it got behind the tree. I see the one leg go in, and as the second leg is supposed to come out from behind the tree, there's a blue flash. Whew. I see this blue flash. It's a blue light, and the Bigfoot was gone. There was no more Sasquatch. No more. Didn't come out from behind the tree. Didn't head up away from me. No sounds in October, end of October, there's leaves everywhere. You could hear this thing walking. It's like there was no noise. It was gone. It was just, it vanished. It was just gone. And at that time, I was so freaked out and so scared. I left most of my stuff and gear in the tree, ran down the tree, sprinted, literally with my headlamp on, sprinted to the road and jumped in the truck and drove off. I didn't go back for almost a week to get my stuff out of there. And I didn't go alone. I went with my buddy John, who was deceased also. But it was rough. It was, and that's kind of where the journey changed. And that's where a lot of things transpired. And that's where everything that you thought you knew, you realized you didn't know a damn thing. Because it was so spectacular that you witnessed something like that happen. It blew my mind. And then that is when we started noticing a lot more lights, things that you call orbs, alien encounters, which there's just so much, it just changes you forever that you wish that it never. Some of my friends, I've lost my father, I've lost two of my best researchers, Brian and John, to incidences that I don't even know if it was. It's almost like a bad karma thing that happens to people, or, sicknesses and a lot of things when you research in this field or in this paranormal Bigfoot realm thing that changes you forever. I myself had some crazy things happen at a conference where I don't like mentioning names, but I will say that Steve Culls helped me get through something that changed my life forever. At Camp Aniasa in 2018. That was the last year I spoke at that conference. But I attribute all these negative things to the Bigfoot world because people don't realize while you're out looking for a Bigfoot, there's other things that you're running across, or other attachments or energies or entities that are out there. There are. Your own government, our government came out and tell you aliens are real and, come on. So, and it changed my life forever. And I owe Steve Culls a lot of, I didn't know he was an ordained minister actually, until that day. And, I had something happen to me that I can talk about it now, but it's more paranormal. We were at a conference and I had to speak the next day. It was around midnight. I told my guys, I said, hey, I'm going to bed. They said, we're going to drink a couple more beers. We'll go to bed around 2 or something. So I went to bed early in my room. They went to bed in there was actually 3 beds in one room. So them two and the guy's kid all slept in their room. And I woke up, must have been around 3 o'clock, and I could smell a smell of gas in the cabin. And I was like, what the hell is that? So me thinking, well, if it's the gas heater out there, I better go turn it down. So I went out, turned the heater down because it smelled like gas. And I was just like, well, I don't know. And I said, what I'm going to do is I'll open my bedroom window in case there's some type of, something. I have fresh air. Nothing's going to happen. I couldn't really pinpoint the gas smell. So I opened the window next to my bed and I fell back to sleep. And about 4:30 in the morning, I got woke up by this thing. And when I say thing, I can't explain to you. I can tell you what it looks like, but I can't tell you what it was. So it laid on top of me. So I was sleeping in bed and I was woken up and this thing was on top of me. It was about 6 inches from my face and it was grayish in skin color, like the palest gray you've ever seen. And its eyes were very large and not saucer-like, but they flailed back. But they were so black, like the sheen on them would be like if you had sunglasses on, that sheen that you see. That's kind of what its eyes looked like. It had 2 horns that protruded out of its head and rolled back over its head. And it was so close to me, I could see the rings on the horns going back. And its mouth was probably 4 times as wide as like our mouth as a human. And it had these jagged black teeth in its mouth. And no matter what I did, like I couldn't move. Like I was like paralyzed. So in my head, I hear this thing say to me, like they talk about this mind speak. So this thing says to me, I finally got you. Okay. And in my mind, I was like, the hell you did. And what it starts to do is, I don't know, I've heard about this, but it starts to suck at my mouth. It's about this far away, 6 inches, and I can see it open its mouth, and I can see this white mist. Like, I don't know if it's coming out of my mouth or if it's going into my mouth. I can't tell because it's vague. But there's this mist, and people say that it's trying to take your soul or whatever. I don't know. But at that time, what I did is I turned my head to the right and I asked God, I said, God, help me. Please help me. Like, I couldn't speak it, but I said it in my head. And right then it stopped what it was doing. It got off of me. I was still paralyzed in the bed like this to my right. It got off of me and it walked toward the closet and it disappeared. And I was able to see because I was in that right-handed position. And on its spine, like where our vertebrae are, they were like the size of softballs. They looked like large bones, but they were like the size of softballs going all the way up its back. It was hunched over kind of. It was about 6 foot tallish. And it had like this, I guess you would want to call it, not a kilt, but it was a tattered and torn Barney Rubble kilt thing around its waist that hung down to like its knee area. But from its knees to its feet, they were backwards like a dog. Like a dog's leg would be, like a rear dog leg. That's how it looked. It went off into the closet and it disappeared, gone. No light, no nothing. Once it disappeared, I was able to jump up and I was screaming. And when I screamed, they all come running like, what is going on? I didn't go back to bed. I had to speak at 7, I had to be at a conference at 7:30 to speak at 9. And I took a shower and I was burning hot. I was like super hot. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. I was just, it was like October 20 something. It was 30 degrees and rain out. I had all the windows open. The heat was off. The guys are like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we're freezing. I'm going to go home. I think I just want to go home. I'm not feeling well. And one of my buddies was like, well, dude, you got everything over at the thing all set up. You need to go at least over there and tell somebody. So I said, okay, I'll go over there. So I go over and I run into Steve, buddy of mine calls. And I said, hey, like, I need to talk to you. And he was like, yeah, like, what's up? So we're out on the deck of Camp Aniasa, and there's probably another 30 people out there, maybe 40, I don't know. And I said, listen, this is what happened to me. And I just told him the story that the encounter that I told you guys. And he looks at me, and the last thing I remember him saying to me is, will you pray with me? And they told me that when he said that, my lights went out, like I blacked out. So I was standing there, but I was out on my feet. He said that his girlfriend at the time had run to the car and got some like holy water and a bunch of stuff because they also did paranormal stuff. And they were praying with me because he said that I told him no, that I would not pray with him. Okay, and that's not like me. I'm Catholic, Christian, Our Father, I'm with the game. I believe in God 100%. So I don't know none of this. Next thing I recall is I come out of it. I wake up is what I can call it. And I look and I said, I'm going to throw up. And I ran. The deck is long. It's probably 60 feet, this huge deck. So I go across the deck. I go down the stairs. And I remember coming to the side of the building and I start like heaving, and I'm like holding the building, and then I must have went out again, because the next thing I remember is them praying over the top of me, and I came to when he had lit some frankincense. He had a thing of frankincense, and he lit it, and he's actually stuck it in my nostril, in my nose right here. When he stuck it in my nose, I vomited, I threw up, and he's holding me against the building with his arm like this, and I'm just crying, I'm sweating, I don't even know where I'm at. I don't even understand what's going on. So then we talked, and, he had to go on with the conference, and I kind of I hung out for a little while. I didn't make it through the whole thing, obviously. I had to get out of there, but we talked after that, and he had believed that it was something like a partial possession of whatever transpired to me. But I believe that this thing had been following me for a while, and it had to do with the Sasquatch topic. Because for it to tell me that it finally got me, I think it was doing things, in my life and making things, making things a living hell. It was, things happened. I almost lost everything. I almost lost my family. I lost 2 researchers that passed away. It was just, there were so many things so I tell people now, like, when you're researching Bigfoot, there's other things that you will contact or come in contact with, or when you're gifting out in the woods, you don't know what the hell, excuse my French, what you're gifting with. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're inviting in. You don't know what's putting that there and taking it from A to B. Is it a Bigfoot, or did something else come in and really, so then you're like, okay, you open that gate up. And that really changed my life. So I had taken some time off, 18, 19, 20, 21. And finally last year, I kind of got back into the Bigfooting thing.
Ryan, we thank you for being here tonight, man. And it was a privilege having you on and talking about your exciting encounters, this crazy demon thing that happened to you, man. And we definitely want to bring you
here talking about that.
Yeah. Definitely want to bring you back on down the road and talk about your UFO experiences and everything else that you've got. So, again, we want to thank you for that, man. And then for the listeners, check out westernnewyorkbigfoot.com, Ryan's website. And he's also written the book, The Bigfoot Report. What's the name of the other 2 books, Ryan?
So you got The Bigfoot Report, Encountering Aliens, and How Bigfoot Found Us. That's the most recent one, and that's kind of where I get into depth of what you could do to possibly find a Sasquatch in the woods.
All right, Ryan, we want to thank you again, man, and definitely we'll talk soon. We'll keep in touch in the meantime, and
appreciate it.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Ryan.
It was great having Ryan on and hearing those encounters and experiences he had with Bigfoot.
It was. That's always fun. That still blows my mind that's in upstate New York.
Yeah, it's the Appalachian Mountains, man. I'm telling you.
Wild, man. Wild.
They're there in the Appalachian Mountains. They're just living there in cave systems and hanging out and being Bigfoot.
What better place to be, I guess.
Yeah. So, did you think about the trivia question? Do you think you have an answer to the trivia question?
I think. Maybe.
All right. So the trivia question is, in what year did Ron Moorhead and Al Berry, I should have asked who recorded it with him, Al Berry and Ron Moorhead record the Sierra Sounds, and where did they record them at? First of all, we'll take 2-year gap. Take a 2-year gap. It's kind of controversial what we're finding for the answer. So what do you say?
I said 1970.
And I said 71. We found possibilities of both. We're not 100% sure. So we'll take either answer, 70 or 71. You are correct. And where were they recorded at?
In the Sierra Mountains.
The Sierra Mountain Range, of course.
It's in the name.
Why were they called the Sierra Sounds? Of course.
Right.
So, at a remote camp.
A remote camp, yeah. I don't even think Ron remembers where it's at.
Yeah, these guys had to go on a horseback. That's the only way they could get there. And then eventually the forest rangers found out about them and shut them down, unfortunately. It's probably after the Sierra Sounds. They knew there was a camp out there and
sure.
found it. So,
But yeah. They're like, nope. We can't be staying here anymore.
So we'll try to bring you more cryptid trivia as we go along here and think of some good questions, and we can learn from this. Brian, once again, cool hanging out with you, my friend.
Always fun. Always learning.
All right. Until next time, what do you say?
See ya.